as fellow healthcare providers, we are trained that we have to know every single possible thing that can go wrong before we can take action. The difference is when it comes to investing in real estate and business in general, is that you can only learn so much by reading about it, but the real education comes by taking action. And so for people who are experiencing analysis paralysis, what I would suggest to them is to first develop a foundation of knowledge. And it doesn't have to know everything. It's impossible to know everything that can possibly happen. But as long as you have a solid foundation of understanding of what it is that you're getting into, the next thing is really developing a network of people who have been in those shoes and have had experience in that industry that you can potentially count on or rely on if there's any questions or problems that come up.
Welcome to the Whitecoat Syndicator podcast, where high-income professionals reveal the practical steps on how to buy back your time and build your generational wealth through real estate investing. And now, let's get to today's episode.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Whitecoat Syndicator podcast, where we hope to educate other whitecoat and busy professionals that there's another way to achieve financial freedom, and that's passively investing through real estate syndications. Today, we have a special guest. We have Kris. Kris is by trade, he's a CRNA. Basically, he's a registered nurse anesthetist who specializes in working under surgeries. Working with patients undergoing open heart surgery regularly, he understands the need to perform under high pressure situations. Right at the start of the pandemic in 2020, Kris and his wife Angela began amassing their $1.3 million portfolio and have formed their company, freedominvesting.com, with a total of 4 general partners. And to take their investing a step further, Kris and his partners have delved into the real estate senior living space, a space that perfectly complements with his 9-to-5 career and his real estate investing venture. And so, Kris, I think you were telling me now that that information is a little bit outdated. You were saying that your portfolio is now worth $2.4 million. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. So we just got one of our places reappraised, and we were able to make around $220,000 onto that stuff. So that kind of increased the value of our portfolio, in addition to the portfolio of our partners, April and Julian.
Man, that's definitely one of the first big steps in real estate, right? One little reappraisal like that can make a life-changing difference, right?
Absolutely.
Man, that's awesome. I'm so happy for you guys. Good work.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's a lot of work, and that's definitely one thing that we've learned being active investors for sure, is that it's a lot of time, a lot of effort, but the difference that can make for you and the lives of you and your family is huge.
Yeah, man. All right. Well, you know what, Kris, can you tell us a little bit more about what life was like before you started investing? I guess, what were you up to? What were you and your wife doing? And what kind of led to your big aha moment? When you realized, hey, we got to do something different.
Absolutely. Well, Josh, first and foremost, thank you for having me on your show. It's a pleasure to be on here. I think we were talking a little bit right before here, and one of the things that we had in connection was that we both are of Filipino background. And so, as you know, having a Filipino background, growing up Filipino, we typically are predetermined to be in one of 3 types of professions. Yep. It's either healthcare, it's either engineering, or it's either accounting. And so in our case, it was healthcare. So my mom was a nurse. She's been in that industry for well over 30 years at this point in time. And I saw the difference that it can make in the lives of others. And so I was going down the path of formal education. I always joked around that I was a professional student for well over 13 years on the path towards going to become a nurse anesthetist. And at the end of it, we were just enjoying life. We were saying, look, I'm in a few years, I'll be done with school. I'll be making a great salary with good benefits. And we're going to have it made. We grew up middle class as a family, and being able to graduate with this type of degree and this type of job position would really make a big impact on the lives of our family. But then something hit me, and this is after 13 years. And I said, well, what if something were to happen to me? All these years of education, regardless of what salary it is that you're making, the moment you can't go into work is the moment that you are no longer providing any income left for your family. And so we realized at that point in time that I needed to develop alternative streams of income to make sure that my family's provided for, regardless of my ability to go into work. And so that's where it took us down the path of personal finance, along that path, we came across the Purple Bible, also known as Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We read that book, and it completely changed our mindset and changed our life. Well, throughout that journey, we got introduced to real estate investing, both through there as well as Bigger Pockets, listening to the podcast, reading books. And in my last year of anesthesia school, my wife and I decided to purchase our first house hack. And so that's kind of how our portfolio got started. It was during the pandemic, January of 2020 is when we closed. And long story short, at the back end of it, we were able to refinance all of our initial investment back out and use that same capital to scale and purchase another 4-unit less than a year later. And
that's awesome. Could we hear a bit more about that? Like what was the property size? Like, I guess what kind of got you like into the idea of house hacking? That's super awesome, man.
Absolutely. So from the personal finance standpoint, one of the things that we read, it's in this book called Set for Life by Scott Trench. He's a Bigger Pockets author. And so that thing said that if you can eliminate the largest expense in your budget, what that can mean for you in terms of what you are able to reinvest and grow will be huge. It's not going to be the $5 Starbucks coffees that you're going to get every day that's going to make a significant difference. It's going to be eliminating the largest expense, which in many people's cases, it's housing. And so we figured if we can graduate school and be in a position where we have no housing expense and we have experience being personal landlords, so we have that experience in managing an asset, long term, it'll all work out in terms of what they can mean for our lives in the future. And so we jumped in. I couldn't qualify for the loan because I was still a student, full-time in clinical residency. And so Angela was the one who had to qualify for the loan, which is my wife. And so she qualified for the loan. And then we were going to do the BRRRR strategy, which for many don't know is you buy a property, you rehab that property. Then after it's rehabbed, you rent it out. And then you refinance it, get that initial investment back out, and repeat that on the next deal. And so that was the plan for what we were going to do. And so when we bought this property, we didn't have the funds to fund the rehab either. So we took out 2 0% interest credit cards. We took 2 personal lines of credit and a 401k loan to fund the rehab. Wow. And of course, this happened in March of 2020, which if you think back at that time in our lives, we had something called COVID-19 coming across our shores and shutting everything down. And so I remember thinking, we had this property. I wasn't making any income. It just got fully vacated. We had all of our financing lined up and thinking to myself, boy, is my contractor going to even be able to go to Home Depot? Are they going to even be able to carry through with this rehab? And if not, what are we going to do? Lucky enough, the contractor was considered an essential worker at the time. So we were able to carry on through with it. But these are the type of risks as an active investor that we didn't realize at the time that we would be taking. And nonetheless, luckily enough, it worked out.
Yeah, I'm sure that during that time, you're clutching onto your seat, just hoping that everything went through. I can only imagine. But the 0% credit card kind of deal, like that, those are basically ticking time bombs, right?
Absolutely, yeah. You have to go into it with a plan, right? So we figured, okay, well, the rehab, if we can give ourselves 1 year time frame in order to do that, and at the time, we knew that by that 1 year, I would be done with school. And so at least I would be in a position where we would be able to pay things off. But that was what we had to do in order to answer the question, how can I afford it? Instead of just saying, I cannot afford it.
For sure, man. Yeah. I guess overall, I know that you guys picked a secure vehicle with real estate, right? But I guess overall, like what led you to the idea that, hey, you know what, maybe we should take a look at real estate and actually invest into it? What did that look like for you guys?
Well, for us, it was the explanation of the 4 pillars of real estate and what makes it so powerful when you compare it to the other asset classes, right? So you have cash flow, and that's the income minus the expenses. Whatever is left over is considered your cash flow. And so that can be used to supplement your income and used to put away so that way you can reinvest that into other vehicles. You also have appreciation. There's a saying, don't wait to buy real estate and wait. Over time, historically, real estate prices have continued to go up over the past 50 to 60 years. So even if you take a property and do absolutely nothing to it, as long as you buy in a market where you understand that it's going in the right direction, things are improving, it serves as a hedge against inflation, the value of that asset is going to continue to go up over time. You also have loan pay down. When you're buying a real estate asset and putting a tenant in there to live in there, it's not you who's paying down that debt that you're taking on. It's actually that tenant. So the ownership in that property is yours. And so the more of that principal continues to get paid down, your equity in that property also continues to go up. And that's another wealth generating vehicle. And finally, you have the tax benefits. You have tons of depreciation that you can take advantage of. And real estate is one of the most tax sheltered asset classes that you can invest in for many reasons. I would say the main reason of that is because you are providing housing to the general population. And so the government wants to incentivize that. So once I understood that all of these benefits someone can experience by investing in real estate, I knew that it was a powerful component that we needed to include in our portfolio.
Definitely, because I have to say, bro, that was a very succinct answer too, man. You had the great area. It was like textbook. That's so awesome. I really hope our listeners really appreciate that, because to be so succinct and to kind of show the power of real estate. I mean, it's definitely second to none, in my opinion, because you are holding a physical asset that that the tax code actually like really takes care of real estate professionals, because we are providing either housing or some kind of warehousing, like or even industrial space where other businesses can actually run in. So your basically your money is tied to an asset, and this asset you can force the value up just by getting it to run better. Cutting expenses, raising up your income. And that's a super powerful tool. So I'm really glad that you pointed that all out, Kris.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm, a lot of people too, I know that I have a lot of friends and family. A lot of them get really stuck in with their analysis paralysis. They read books, they listen to podcasts, and they watch videos, but they don't take action. So I guess, what did you guys do to help you get more comfortable with the idea of investing and then to actually pull the trigger and do it?
Yeah, Josh, I can really resonate with that. And I'm sure you can too. As fellow healthcare providers, we are trained that we have to know every single possible thing that can go wrong before we can take action. Because at the end of the day, it's someone's life that's at stake. So we have to make sure that we understand what possible complications can go on, and we do a risk to benefit analysis on whether or not to proceed. The difference is when it comes to investing in real estate and business in general, is that you can only learn so much by reading about it, but the real education comes by taking action. And so for people who are experiencing analysis paralysis, what I would suggest to them is to first develop a foundation of knowledge. And it doesn't have to know everything. It's impossible to know everything that can possibly happen. But as long as you have a solid foundation of understanding of what it is that you're getting into, the next thing is really developing a network of people who have been in those shoes and have had experience in that industry that you can potentially count on or rely on if there's any questions or problems that come up. The next thing I would do is making sure that you're in a position of financial strength. So getting your personal house in order, making sure that you are living within your means or below your means. So that way you can buffer any hiccups that come your way. I think when you are in a position of financial strength, you have a solid foundation of knowledge, you can definitely move forward from there and understanding that there's either success or learning experiences. There's no failures as long as you continue to learn from it.
I love how you put that too, because a lot of people as healthcare professionals, we're super trained. You have to do it right, or if you do it wrong, like there's severe consequences. Not to say that with real estate there's no severe consequences, but it's a learning process. Everything that we do in life, we're gonna learn along the way. So it's one thing to be in analysis paralysis and not do it ever, but it's learn to launch imperfectly, and we'll learn along the way. And I really appreciate that about you guys. Looks like you guys went head first, so you guys did it.
Yeah, we're very much ready, aim, fire when it comes to business, at least because we know the power of experience.
Yeah, for sure, man. And so I guess for listeners today, if you had to give them one actionable piece of advice to get started, what would you do? What would that tend to be?
I would say find yourself someone who could potentially show you the way after developing a solid base of knowledge. We refer a lot of that as a mentor. And doesn't have to be a paid mentor. It doesn't have to be anything formal. Just someone who is just a little bit ahead of you, who has gone through what you're about to get yourself into. And that way you can run ideas by them. You can learn from their experiences, which is likely fresh in their head, and figure out a way that you can provide value to them. So that way you can help them grow while they help you grow. And it's this really beautiful and synergistic relationship that can mean a ton when it comes to your growth in your business. For our sake, we started up a monthly meetup here in Chicago called Windy City REI. Along the road, we found another mentor who has been in the industry for over 30 years. He's owned over 1,000 rental units. He's had a lot of experience and a huge network in the industry. And we wanted to make sure that we provided as much value to him in helping him grow his mission. And in return, we had just by nature, of association, we've been able to grow as well. And if you can put yourself in a situation where you can find someone who can provide that for you, I think that's a key component to taking action.
Absolutely, man. The idea of a mentor, just, it's second to none, because it really shortcuts your learning, and really kind of lets you avoid the pitfalls. Not saying that you're not going to get in any pitfalls, but at least you'll know things that they've done to mitigate that kind of risk. So definitely, I can super appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Kris, I guess knowing what you know now with the real estate experience, was there anything that you would have done differently when you started?
I think this is probably consistent with a lot of people, is I probably would have started earlier. A lot of people were very successful, throughout this entire bull market since 2012. And I get it. At 2012, people were hit very, very hard in the real estate industry. They were just coming out of it. And the reality is the situation at the time, if you were there in 2012, a lot of people were probably still scared to get back into real estate investing. They didn't have a lot of trust in the system or the industry. But the people who did and believed in it really set forth the foundation for a very successful future in doing so. And even for ourselves, if we listened to people and said, well, Kris, why would you get into real estate investing during your last year of anesthesia school? Why don't you just wait until you're done? Well, if you think about the market and what that looked like in 2020 compared to 2021, and then fast forward now to 2022, property values have skyrocketed. There's a ton of demand nowadays, a lot of it due to the amount of liquidity that was just pumped into the market on behalf of the government to help stimulate us. There's just a ton of demand relative to supply. And if we had not taken action that 1 year, that would have made a significant difference, both in terms of our experience as well as the net worth that we were able to create in that 1 year.
Yeah, overall, I know that seems to be the common thing. Everyone wishes that they started earlier. And since we didn't start yesterday, today is the best time to start, my man. Good.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yep.
Well, Kris, now we're getting towards the end of the show. How can people learn more about you? How can they reach out?
So you can check us out at www.freedominvesting.com. For those who are interested in learning about passive investing, we actually have a 7-day passive investing course that's on our website. Or if you want to sign up to our newsletter, you can check us out at www.freedominvesting.com. We also have a podcast. Josh, we would love to have you on board. We'd love to kind of hear a little bit more about your story.
For sure.
And for those who are actively investing, we host a monthly real estate networking event here in Chicago that also live streams on Zoom. It's called Windy City REI. So make sure to check one of those out.
Perfect, man. Well, Kris, man, I appreciate your eloquent wording today. Everything it's so succinct. It's such a beautiful way everything is worded, man. Thank you for coming on today.
Josh, thanks for having me, man.
All right. Well, everybody, be sure to check out Kris at windycityrei.com, also freedominvesting.com, where you can learn more about him and his company. All right. Thank you for tuning in today. Have a good day, guys.
I hope you got a ton of value from today's episode. Don't forget to visit the whitecoatsyndicator.com to learn everything you need to know about buying back your time through real estate syndications.